Jordan, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining another presentation on AI, but I promise that we're really trying to drive a lot of value. And it's very topical. I've spoken to many people, Jamie and I both have spoken to a lot of people in this room that are thinking about what AI means, understanding where students need AI literacy skills, but understanding how. And ultimately, as we kind of live in this space as people building an AI company, what we've seen great companies do and where we think that we can offer some advice on picking, in general, new products in AI to help students, to help teachers, and share a bit of value. So we can get into it. So today, what we'll be looking at is a few things. First and foremost, I thought it'd be helpful to understand how 2025 has been in the reality of AI, and more broadly about what large language models have been doing over the last year, and how that would impact in education and the tools coming out now. Next, of course, what I just spoke about a little bit before is talking about these best practices. Where and how can you think about different questions that you can take with you as you evaluate all these amazing products that are out there and how they specifically work for each of your schools. And finally, we'll look at a practical example of what we've built at Willow from the lens of what a potential solution could look like. So let's get right into it. So AI usage, by no surprise, is accelerating at a massive rate. Something that we in the industry had no idea that it would grow at this level. You're looking at Statica here, 4.3 million, about midway through 2023, were the monthly downloads of ChatGPT. And as we look around the same time now, you're seeing a 16x growth in monthly active downloads. So this is becoming ubiquitous. There's no question the data is definitely supporting that. When we then jump to the businesses and why you're seeing so many businesses jump on board, it's not just hype. It is definitely because costs on AI are dropping dramatically. The commodity of being able to have these tokens be able to be used, and what tokens really mean are the words that you get back in response from any AI model. You say, hi, ChatGPT, it says, hi, Jordan. That just gave a certain percentage, 0.00001% of one token. So what is this saying here is in the normal cost in USD, and this is coming from Andreessen Horowitz out of the San Francisco venture capital firm, it's 1 million tokens used to cost $60 right here. If you can see that here. Oh, I got a clicker, I can use that. There it is. For ChatGPT 3, when it first came out. I think we all remember that. Since that period, again, 2 years, we're looking at here, Llama. And what you're seeing there is it used to cost $60 for 1 million tokens. That same 1 million tokens at the same proficiency level is now 10 cents. So what that tells you is that we've dramatically been able to drop and drop the pricing down dramatically so that now other industries are able to take part. It's not necessarily the supercomputer anymore. In 2 years, we're already at a point where it's like an iPhone. It's in everyone's pocket. And I mean, it's no surprise the commercial sectors are absolutely jumping on board at this. This is one of the stats coming out of McKinsey, management consulting. And what they talked about a little bit here is the use of AI as it's grown over the last few years. But you've seen this dramatic increase in the use of generative AI. And so every company in some form is not just thinking about AI now, they're rapidly adopting it. You can see on this left-hand side, you can see a little bit of a curve of what fully scaled is, still in its infancy, but the vast majority are already scaling and piloting. And that's reflected in how employers are looking at new candidates. This is something that maybe you can take back to as your students enter into the workforce after they go through higher education. There's an increased demand to get this right now. Right? You're seeing a 14% average premium in wages from UK employers that have workers that have AI skills. 3.6 times faster growth in AI jobs, in jobs that are looking for AI in their positions. And ultimately a 4.8 times increase in productivity from those new candidates who are equipped with AI skills. And so let's turn our lenses to education. What does that actually mean? Well, based on the data, what we're seeing is kind of a paradox, right? We're seeing 75% of students here in the UK, moving forward, this is mainly focused in the UK in terms of statistics, 75% of those students are using AI in some form for their schoolwork from the ages of 11 to 17. Yet 69% of schools have yet to implement any kind of AI or any type of policy. other than potentially banning ChatGPT on their Wi-Fis. And 79% of teachers still have not received training. Now, I know many people in this room are leading the way on education and teaching policy, and so I'm sure that that is something that you may have already been looking at. But the reality is that there is still this gap in the data of how students are now using the product without any kind of knowledge of how to use it, and teachers are still playing that catch-up. And again, wanted to talk a little bit more. Thought this would be helpful to understand what attitude's been looking like in relation to AI. And again, I'm sure you're having conversations with your staff all the time. But from the data, we're actually seeing something pretty surprising. We're seeing quite a positive impact that teachers view AI and having on education. But also, it can go to this third one here, they see it as a positive impact on also their workload. So there's definitely an appetite from teachers to understand how to use it, but what is still a mystery. Again, when we look at a correlation on attitude, specifically towards teachers and students, another piece of data that's really interesting is, yes, many of them have used AI in some form, but actually, if you see here, the neutrality, as well as the positive nor negative impact that both students in the brown here and green is the teachers here, you can see that actually students are more neutral about the interaction that they're having with AI. They don't really understand if it's positive or negative yet. There's a really beautiful moment in that curiosity that we're also seeing at this stage and where we are in the AI state. This was also done by RAND out of Cambridge, as well as working with the American School District panel, where they also talked about what are the current methods of use. I thought this would be helpful to get an idea of some ideas of how teachers today are using AI. Again, the vast majority are using them for SEND, understanding where they can give that additional support where they may not always have time to do so. And of course, as you can imagine, assessments, quizzes, workload implementations are already alive and well. Majority are using that as well here as well. But again, this is more personal, but I love that there was also things happening in active learning, language and speech, translation. English is a second language. It's an incredibly powerful tool already to help with those things as well. We also looked a little bit more at the concerns, of course, rightfully so, the concerns of what AI can do in classrooms. We are, after all, talking about students. And again, when asked teachers what their concerns were, plagiarism on the rise. But also, we're looking at this reduced human interaction. What does that look like? Is that a replacement? Is that an augmentation? There's definitely concerns around that as well. And of course, the classics in data privacy and understanding, what that can help, where they can get more help with that as well. When we look more at students here now, what you'll see is, a bit of a breakdown of kind of what student use looks like. And mostly it's ChatGPT. When they're actually using the products, and ChatGPT in this case, you'll see that curiosity is definitely the #1 leading spectrum. So they're definitely using it a lot for that, but they're already using it for homework as well. And as summary, we're seeing, massive AI growth in terms of what the workforce is expecting from candidates into the future. There are still clear guidance. It's still in its infancy. And ultimately, digital transformation is great, but it still feels unclear. So what we thought is we would help with understanding what a framework could look like. And many of these things you may have already understood, but I thought it'd be nice to summarize as we go into day 2 here. And that's really these 5 pillars that we think about when we're evaluating AI, and what our peers, who we believe are doing great AI in education, are equally doing. And don't worry about having to keep this. We'll have a framework that you can download at the end. We'll share this with everyone here. But really, of course, asking yourselves these questions of safety, right? And it's not just about how the data is stored, but it's very much about how appropriate the content is that these students are getting. At the end of the day, AI is still, in this place where it's not concentrated. It needs the right parameters, and it needs to have that safe mindset in order for it to work effectively. And it's never been more important than in education. Fit for purpose. We talk about this a lot. There's a lot of AI out there that talks about doing everything. And the excitement around AI is that it can change the world. And I couldn't agree more. But the reality is that it can't do everything. And so being incredibly weary of products that aren't specifically saying that they're designed for education and with teachers in mind is incredibly critical. Data security. Of course, I don't think I need to talk about this too much, but it's important to understand, where that data is held, what they're doing in terms of training. A lot of models are training on their own data, and your data, to be honest, in order to effectively make their models better. You need to understand what those awarenesses are, what their security parameters are. Make sure you ask those questions to make sure that they're not training on student data. Another nuanced point, but I think an important one, is it needs to stay lockstep with curriculum. So whether you're using it with workloads for teachers or, of course, with students into the future, you need to ensure that the great curriculums that you're already creating are being reflected. They're not deviating from what it is that the students need to learn by the end of the term. And finally, a non-AI kind of problem. It's the cultural change, the conversations that we need to be having, conversations that students need to be aware of because they are still feeling quite neutral. They're still quite curious. And I think having those conversations in the room about what AI is, more importantly, what it isn't, it's not a human. It's not going to have every answer. It's going to get things wrong. It's important to stay curious and to maintain those critical and creative thinking skills as we move forward. So let's hop into Willow, show you a little bit about what we've built, more from a lens of what a product in the education space in relation to AI could look like. Jamie's over there in the corner. He's my co-founder. He's my lead engineer. And he's AV today. So he's going to help me run this demo. We're doing it completely live. He's literally over there. This is a class view. So this is what a teacher would see. I'll keep this quite short. But in our lens, we believe that teachers should stay in control of the AI that's used for students. So we'll jump into, Jamie, pick your class. OK, he's picking his. So what you'll see here is, of course, 2 questions. And this is, again, about keeping teachers in control. We want to understand who we're teaching, and by that we mean what level of support they need, but also we want to individualize that support. So again, that's one of the promises that AI can bring, is this personalization to every student, that no matter the best teachers can't always afford to give every student the time and attention that they want to. And then what are we teaching? So in this case, you'll actually be able to, Jamie, go ahead and pick your favorite subject. Oh, classic. OK, so Jamie loves the Romans. What you can do here is you can tell Willow as little or as much as you want to. So in this case, we're just going to leave it the Roman Empire. This is a year 9 history class. But they can also, as teachers, upload the documents that make their class really interesting. So their slides, their schemes of work. And Willow will contextualize what that is and make sure that we're staying on topic. Of course, in the background, we understand the curriculum. That's been done in the configuration. But that's an important note as well. Go ahead and move to the next slide, or the next page. And then this is where it's about helping, not necessarily replacing. So what Willow does here is we understand a few different things that we can do well with AI, right? Anything from quizzes to exams to knowledge checks to role play. And we make it really easy to add a task that students can now do after their lesson is done. So you can think of Willow as, you do your planning, you do your teaching very firmly with teachers. Then there's everything that leads up to an exam, the comprehension phase. That's what we're a part of. And so we'll do a role play here, Jamie, if you can. And we'll go ahead and add that task. So you'll see here, before you actually click launch, this is not yet used by students. So it's also important to note that it shouldn't be a free use tool. We're not ChatGPT, we're not Gemini, we're not click and start using. We're controlled, and only when it's launched can a student then log into their Willow platform on their end and actually interact with the AI. Go ahead. I'm mindful of time. OK. And so now Willow's going to ask you where the student is, at school, at home, and go into the class that they're working in now. So we're back in Jamie's. Now what you'll see is 2 things. Of course, we've picked a role play. So again, this engagement piece that I think AI can be really great at doing, as long as it's focused on the curriculum ahead of it. So we've impersonated Gaius, a Roman soldier here. And it's going to actually be able to talk to every student. You can almost picture 20 different students now with their devices working on this system. And we also do 2 things as well. We embed AI literacy skills directly into the system, which I think is a really important point to what we talked about earlier, about how AI skills are actually going to be much more important that students know how to do. It's not necessarily interacting, but also understanding what it is and isn't. We have some of that here, and of course, the background of what the lesson was that it would be about. Again, this would be linked to the curriculum. Let's go back up here and type, tell me a little bit about the roads. Great. So it's going to be able to interact at that level where they're able to ask the questions they like. But if they say, write me a paper on the roads, Jamie has to make sure there's no spelling mistakes in a room full of teachers. It's quite stressful. It won't. And I know that there's a lot of products that are looking at education and understanding that importance, but it's important that a student stays very curious, but not necessarily just getting those answers, but giving a little bit of structure in this case. So we had the parameters set to a moderate level of structure, so it will help with giving a bit of detail here. But also safeguarding, and this is another aspect that we talked about in our pillars, which is if we talk about bullying. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm not. That's not fair. It will also make sure that that's appropriately responded to and alerted to teachers. So we can flip over back to the teachers now. And you'll actually see that it's flagged here. So we make sure that it's known to teachers. We've dismissed it now so that you don't get a direct alert to Jamie for the sake of the demo, but it's flagged directly to teachers as well. And finally, we look at the insights. And this is another thing that I think as you look at new tools, insights are a great thing to use. Because what AI is really good at is it's condensing information. It's not necessarily good at new information. It shouldn't be necessarily taking it free liberty of what it should be doing, but it is really good at taking input and then summarizing it back, which can be incredibly helpful and what we've already seen very helpful for teachers. So this is at a task level, that Roman example we've been talking about. You can always drill into a student. We won't do that right now for the sake of time. But what we will do is go back up here, Jamie, and you'll see the class insights as well. And this kind of data, as it loads, it's incredibly, it's definitely the new wave of where AI is going. It's about reporting, of course. It's about how we're aggregating that data. And in our case, we're really trying to present this in the best way possible to teachers so that they can get a clear view of how their class is doing as a whole. And of course, one thing that teachers keep coming back to us for is these strengths, areas, and needs of support and recommendations that we can make at a class level. Understanding every single student, how they're interacting with their curriculum, having those conversations within our product. These are some of the ways that we're thinking about that. Yeah, that's the end of our demo. You can switch back now. Cool. Go to the next slide. Great, so I'll give you back 2 minutes. This is kind of hopefully helpful. That framework that I showed, those 5 pillars, at our booth, we'll actually have that framework for you to download. So you can use it as a lens that you can continuously use as you look at new AI products. If you want to come talk to us, even more generally about AI products that you're looking at using, Jamie's been building products for 13 years. He's been working in AI for 4. He's one of the smartest people I know in the AI space. I just do this, really. But honestly, we're happy to talk. I know it's an important topic at the minute, and we're happy to help where we can. Of course, we really love Willow, but we are biased, and we definitely think that there's an interest, and there's already schools here in this room that are using it as well. So thank you so much for your time, and we're always there for any questions. Thank you so much. Yeah, please.
We've got just a little bit of time. Whilst Jordan's on stage, has anyone got any questions that you want to fire at him? Yes, question at the back.
It looks great. I was wondering if you had a measure of the impact of your product yet, if you've managed to test it, and what the impact is on student learning.
We're still really new. We spent a lot of time in research and development. Spoke to about 80 different teachers before we built anything. So we started this year, earlier this year. Now we're working with about 12 schools, 33 new schools are coming in between this term and the next. So I'm not going to sit here and say we're boosting exam performances. I think that's unfair, and if anyone says that directly without enough testing, I think that that's really unfair. What we have done is worked with the London School of Economics on impact in sixth form classes and the correlation between engagement, creativity, and comprehension. In that, we did see a 20% increase in comprehension and a 75% increase in engagement, students wanting to use the system more. We did a survey with about 80 different students. So far, so good. but we're still working on that. And of course, our main goal would be to actually impact student achievement academically. Good question, though. Hi, yeah.
Are there any privacy or compliance issues with the,
Please.
Are there any privacy or compliance issues with the back check where we, can then evaluate if a child needs help, that sort of oversight where is the child doing this knowing that, thinking that I'm talking to this AI privately and that was my conversation, Tom, I'm being bullied, and then that goes, where does that sit with the whole privacy compliance, whose data, my data, do we have a right to overlook? I mean, it's great that we are able to pick that up.
I hear you.
But what's the legal side? I don't know if you're...
I'm not a lawyer, so this is
Neither
not
am
legal
I,
advice.
it's
No,
just
I
curious.
completely, it's something that we talk about internally, we talk about our schools a lot, is this idea that because we can flag these things and from a technical standpoint we can do it, where does that leave us in relation to where does that responsibility lie? I mean, right now we're leaning on teachers and schools and leaders to tell us how they would like those kind of conversations met. From a privacy standpoint, everything is locked internally. I mean, spend 20 minutes just talking about our safety and securities, but it's incredibly safe. But at the end of the day, I agree with what you're saying is that relationship with the AI, again, goes back to that culture, is to tell a student that this is here to help you. It's not necessarily something that, you should feel as human.
Sorry, who owns the data? Is it the school?
Sorry, the schools owns the data. We're the data processor. Any product should tell you that you own the data as the school, and they should be basically the custodian. So they should only be...
GDPR and how you use that data then comes into play.
100%, and that's why you would need a DPA that's really strong, and you need to make sure that you have like some kind of advice on that as well. I'm happy to share what we use. We always make the DPA as well, just as a template. I'm happy to send that over to you, yeah.
Thanks, Jordan.
No problem.
We're going to
Please.
move on now, but thank you so much. Jordan.